Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to be with you here today at the second Independent Directors Summit 2022. Transform India through good governance. First of all, I'd like to offer a big thank you to the organizers for having me here to discuss the role that environmental, social, and governance, also known as ESG issues, play on boards. I'm Helle Jorgensen. I'm the CEO of Competent Boards. So who are we? We are, I would say, agile organization that offers training programs on ESG and climate change to board members and senior executives, as well as asset managers around the world. Our faculty, which leads the program delivery, comprises more than 150 renowned international board members, executives, and experts, including a few very, very world-renowned leaders from India. Our attendees definitely reap the benefits of our faculty's shared wisdom when they go back to their desks and their regular jobs. We believe the road to a sustainable future is paved by education, and that is what we do. We educate board of directors, senior executives, as I said, asset managers. And similarly, that is what Mentor My Board does as well, through its services, networking, mentorship, events, and all around assistant. That makes us neatly aligned in that regard. At work, it is hard to make informed decisions if you're not really up to speed about the most important things hitting your business, hitting our society. We draw upon our faculty to share their insights and expertise on ESG, environment, social governance, climate, and other sustainability issues, including also the Sustainable Development Goals. All our sessions are delivered online to our participating board members and business professionals, again from all over the world, which means that you get a global network, global insight, and global wisdom. And that is what we need today. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us that there is an increasing need and value in these digital learning platforms, such as Competent Boards and Mentor My Board, that provide accessible opportunities to learn. As for myself, for 30 years or a bit more, I have worked with world-renowned business leaders in many countries to turn sustainability, including ESG and climate risks, into innovative and profitable business opportunities. People have called me a pioneer in this space. Yes, there you can see the gray hairs. That's flattering. Not the gray hair, but it's flattering to be called a pioneer, of course. But the reality is that my experience and my knowledge were shaped by leaders in India and elsewhere who wrote and who practice sustainable business practices, well, even before I was born. One of these leaders, larger than life, Jamsetji Tata, and I'm really sorry that I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but the founder of the Tata Group, said more than a century ago, in a free enterprise, the community is not just another stakeholder in business, but is, in fact, the very purpose of its existence. Let me say that again. In a free enterprise, the community is not just another stakeholder in business, but is, in fact, the very purpose of its existence. That's very, very wise words. Unfortunately, his wisdom did not stay front and center of business conversations. Instead, many business leaders believed in Milton Friedman's more singular purpose of business existence, which was to make a profit for their shareholders without exception. We have recently seen a reversal of Friedman's philosophy via the support for the 2020 Davos Manifesto, just as an example. That stated that the purpose of a company is to engage all its stakeholders in shared and sustained value creation, which again also very nicely aligns with the founder of Tata's values. However, the world has been, well, let's say, brought to its knees, not only the last month about COVID and last years, I should say, but also perhaps this profit-driven misconception. Don't get me wrong, we need to make sure that we make money. The question is, how do we make the money? A fast-growing number of people now realize that there are limits to how much we can use nature's free resources without putting in place any regenerative measures. A warmer planet will change how we live, is changing how we live, changing how we work and how we do business. Mother Earth is starting to send us invoices in the form of severe changes to weather patterns. We have already cashing checks, but the price just keeps getting higher. We are having to spend more money making businesses and supply chains more resilient to this climate onslaught. Lives and livelihoods are being lost due to these climate change events. Biodiversity is shrinking, just like a puddle in a heat wave, while more and more people are experiencing a sharp drop in quality of life and their health. Just look at the recently released 2022 World Economic Forum Global Risk Report. I'm one of the global experts in terms of corporate governance and leadership and emerging multinationals. So looking at these reports, it's a stark reminder that risk is not just something that's out there in the future. It's now, and we need to deal with it now. If we look at the report, it highlights the top 3 environmental concerns: climate action failure, extreme weather, and biodiversity loss. No competent board member can ignore what is happening right under its nose. I hope that it's certainly not the case in India. I read that your country is on track to achieve its 2030 Paris targets of 40% non-fossil fuel energy ahead of schedule. In 2022, this year, bravo! India is a leader in renewable energy, attracting a lot of investments through political and urgent climate action. In short, the world needs a miracle. Well, perhaps several miracles, but board of directors, including you, can help deliver on one miracle when you start to learn about and understand the risk and the opportunities that you are facing, and that India's facing, and that the world's facing. Gone are the days of just allocating a budget of corporate social responsibility or CSR activities and calling it a day, saying, done, we've done what we should. No, it's not good enough. Good governance, good corporate governance now calls for directors to integrate sustainability issues into their company's business strategies And that starts from learning the ABCs of ESG and climate issues. These issues, which have traditionally been excluded from financial analysis, they now need to be addressed by companies in India and all over the world. And not something we do in 2, 3, 4 years. Now is the time to do it. State Street have just released how they're going to judge companies. Climate is top concern, so is diversity. There is a lot of work to do and not much time to get it done. The 2021 Sustainability Board Report examines the world's largest 100 publicly listed companies. The data showed that only 40%, 40% of directors serving on a board committee that oversees ESG and sustainability or climate, whatever we want to call it. You might even call it CSR. But only 40% were what they call ESG conscious, or have the knowledge, the attitude, and behavior exhibiting sustainability. You can say, wow, 40%, especially when I tell you that the year before it was 17%. I went out and asked when I analyzed the data and found that it was 17% a few years ago, and said, would we be happy if 17% of those board of directors serving on an audit committee would say, yeah, I understand how to read a financial report? Of course we would not. So how can we be happy with 17% or 40% of those board of directors serving on a committee that is charged to oversee sustainability, ESG, climate, and the effectiveness of the system in place in the company to reach its targets, to reach its goals? If only 17 or 40% have the conscious about what they are looking at. We can do better than that. And what's more, actually 17 and 40% might be a little bit too much, because fewer than 1 in 10 directors, 8%, had any kind of formal ESG training. I'm very proud to say many of the directors going through the ESG Competent Board Certificate and Designation programs and our Climate Certificate and Designation programs are getting that insight and putting it into proxy statement, putting it into the corporate governance reports, and are benefiting from the asset managers and other stakeholders looking at it. But we need much more. We need to have board of directors that understand the ABC of ESG and climate, making informed decisions. Board members can deliver this miracle the world needs, because board members are the most influential players in a company. You not only hire and fire the CEO, you're the guardians of the company's long-term success. You should agree on the purpose of the business, set the strategic direction, and make informed decisions about what is best for the company and its stakeholders. When do you press the speeder? When do you press the brake? You are there to oversee. You're there to ask questions. You're there to ensure that you're also there for the long term. Changing the climate in the boardroom. That was a report that was published in December 2021 by Heidrich and Struggles and INSEAD. And that gave actually me some cause for optimism. 3/4, 75% of the surveyed 301 boards indicated that climate change is very or entirely important to their company's strategic success? Yes, many would say, of course, it should have been 100%. But having the conscious decisions of saying that, that tells me that there are some changes happening. However, just to be true, the optimism must still be met with some caution, as 43% say they do not have clear targets for reducing carbon emissions. That same report also showed that 69% say climate change is not a formal requirement for joining or staying on the board. I think in the future, you would see that in order to serve on the board, at the board, be around the boardroom table, you're going to be asked, do you have at least the understanding of the ABC of ESG and climate? I don't say everyone should be an expert, actually, but you need to have enough knowledge to ask the questions. And that's what we are hopefully helping companies and board members and executives understand. What are the questions to ask? And also what are the answers to expect? In India, I'm aware there is a lot to be optimistic about when it comes to corporate governance. I believe it's the Companies Act 2013, and you know all of this better than I do, but that introduced mandatory concepts of board independence, class action lawsuits, corporate social responsibility, although I think we should call it something else, gender diversity for the board, and more corporate governance in the country continues to evolve as we see extensive regulations of businesses for more effective governance. I've been writing in articles also about your governance in terms of saying, what are the strategy of the company? Who are the directors that can help this company? So it's not just a black box. I think you're ahead on that. And I think we need to see much more transparency from companies all around the world. But standards, regulations, or not, board of directors simply must take more responsibility, must be stewards of the future. A company's success in 2022 and beyond will be contingent on how well it embeds ESG, so environment, social governance considerations, into all its deliberations and decisions. ESG cannot be an afterthought, nor just a CSR budget item. ESG must be the proactively embedded compass that every employee and business partner use. This compass must guide all employees, all shareholders as well, stakeholders and customers to the company's true North Star, its purpose, its values, and the impact on everyone and everything that the company impact. To provide a structured approach to this compass, you can look at the integrated thinking principles. So some of you will know I did the first integrated report in the world on how the company's reporting on not only the financials and sustainability, but how it integrates. I'm a big believer in integrated thinking and having a mindset where we understand how the different parts interact and impact. Only then can we make well-informed decisions. We can't be thinking in silos. So this integrated thinking and the principles on how to embed all of these things, it needs to be embedded into the business strategy. Again, where the board of directors need to play an active role. I don't believe that the board of directors should look at the strategy after it's formed and say, oh, yeah, that's good. I believe that the board of directors have a responsibility to be part of and set some direction also for the strategy. Not as an afterthought, but proactively. In my recently released book, Stewards of the Future, A Guide for Competent Boards, I quote Gopal Krishnan, a former director of Tata Group, who is also part of the faculty of competent boards, along with a line of other fantastic leaders. Some of them are among you. Gopal compares the challenge facing the board to the relationship between a mother and her child. And he says, and let me show the book here. He says, the purpose of good corporate governance is to see how your company can be a good corporate citizens for all stakeholders and yet make a profit. I don't see that as being very different from a mother raising a child who probably does everything for her child to be a good, responsible citizens of society. And she hopes the child also wins the Nobel Prize or becomes a professor or whatever. It's exactly the same with corporate governance. Thank you, Gopal, for that and so much wisdom. The book is filled with wisdom, insight, experience from over 100 world-renowned board members, board chairs, board directors, executives, experts, investors. It focuses on identifying ESG risks and turning them into opportunities. It examines the dilemmas that we face with ESG risks and climate change, as well as the fiduciary duty of boards and how every decision will impact their market. I urge you all to think about those dilemmas. That's the reason why we're board members. We need to look at all of the dilemmas and find the best solution for the company. So in each of the 11 chapters, there are 10 key questions that boards and executives can use to determine how well aligned they are on ESG strategies, actions, and outcomes. So ask yourself and your fellow peers, both in the boardrooms and around the executive tables, etc., how are you going to face dilemmas in our evolving society and economy? A while back, I wrote an article on 10 steps towards good ESG governance. And those steps still hold true and will hopefully give you food for thought in the months ahead. So the first is determine if the board possesses the necessary ESG and climate literacy or whether they require more education. Think about it. Do you have the insight that you need to provide the oversight and the foresight? Number two, determine the company's most material stakeholders and understand their concerns. Look at it as a gift when stakeholders criticize, when employees say, can we do something else? Look at it as a gift. I would rather hear it from stakeholders coming to me than reading about it in the newspaper or seeing it on social media. It's a gift that you're giving when someone wants to give you some feedback. Number three, determine the company's material ESG risk and opportunities and how their potential impacts. So think about what are the potential impacts on all of these material ESG risk and opportunities. And how will you mitigate? How will you adapt? How will you reduce? How will you eliminate the negative impacts and turn it into something that's positive? I can tell you it's a insight that you will get that's good for strategy and also good for your bottom line. Number 4, ensure ESG considerations are given sufficient attention across the board committees. I don't believe that ESG should just be put in a committee, a silo, and then dealt with there. Needs to be, the audit committee needs to understand how to read the reports, the NumGov needs to, etc. We need to have this as a embedded in the way we look at all of our responsibilities. How is it embedded into the risk management system? Do we have the risk register? Lots of questions that we need to ask. 5, ensure that there are accountability measures in place. It's not enough to say, yep, done. You need to make sure you know who is accountable, who is it that you call upon, who is it that report, and ensure that you have that accountability in place. 6, ensure ESG is integrated into strategic decision making across the organization and the value chain. I've seen many places where it's very much, okay, we do it within the company's 4 walls. You need to think about your full value chain. That's even more important now. And we are seeing regulation popping up different places in terms of the due diligence, not only of your when you're doing merger and acquisition, but also for your suppliers. We're seeing scope 1, 2, 3 emissions being asked for. We're seeing in terms of human rights issues. So look at your full value chain. 7, align ESG goals with incentives. And make sure, please, that you really think about those incentives. I've seen, unfortunately, many places where we have unintended consequences of some incentives plans. You really need to ensure that you align your strategy with your incentives and that you look at the ESG goals and measures as well. 8, ensure consistent and transparent reporting and disclosure. Again, I have unfortunately seen a lot of perhaps not so consistent reporting and perhaps not as transparent as one would hope for. Board member, you are responsible for asking questions about the data. And how are we painting a full picture, or are we only taking the few roses and frankly doing greenwashing? It's not worth it. Ask the questions. 9, ensure the company's response to ESG demands are aligned with the materiality and proportionality of the issue. Again, I often see that we have a response where it's like, but this is not material at all for this company. Why will the company use all of this time, resources on issues that not really move the dial? While you could use the resources on something that gives much more value to stakeholders as well as to the company. And last but not least, in these 10s, but I'm quite sure you have many more. Number 10, maintain regular proactive dialogue with your peers, policymakers, investors, and other stakeholders. Listen to the street, learn from your peers, learn from your stakeholders, make sure you communicate. The transition plans that we all are looking at the moment are not done in isolation. We need to really understand the impact. What are the actions we're taking and what impact will that have? That there we perhaps can use the 7-generation principle, not only tomorrow, but 7 generations from now. 7 generation principles is one that I'm writing about in the book as well. However, it's not just climate, biodiversity, and other environmental matters that are on, or should be on, the top of board agendas in the years to come. Add social issues to that list. Although our world has been, hit so hard all over by COVID-19 pandemic, and India as well, we can also see the mental health damage this has caused. This has hit our kids perhaps the hardest. The kids, our future, our hope. If we go back to the global risk report, I mentioned it includes all these issues and more that should be on top of mind for board members. Being a board member today and tomorrow is and will be very different than being a board member of yesterday. And there is no looking back unless you want to put your head in the sand and hope for a miracle. The good Professor Mervyn King, Professor Extraordinary at the University of South Africa on corporate citizenships, and another world-renowned leader that's part of the competent board's faculty, and may I say a dear friend, says that the company itself is an incapacitated person that has no heart, no mind, no soul, no conscience of its own. Therefore, the leader, the employees, and the partners needs to be that heart, that soul, and that conscious of the company, and must become stewards of the future, as I call my book. I hope you will use your collective wisdom to help shape India's and the world's future. I thank you to everyone today who attended this session, listened on the ESG role of board of directors. You can find more information about competent boards and about the book at competentboards.com, or feel free to connect with me on my Twitter or my LinkedIn accounts. And I definitely look forward to connecting with you and hopefully help you become a steward of the future. I also hope that I will soon be able to visit your beautiful country again. So with that, thank you very much for having me, and stay safe and stay healthy, and please be a steward of the future.